Good morning. My name is Pat Kemp, and I'm Hillsborough County Commissioner, HART Board Chair, and Chair of Strategic Planning and External Relations Committee for 2021. Welcome to the January 24, 2022 Strategic Planning and External Relations Committee meeting. The meeting is hybrid. Quorum is physically present at the HART Administrative Board office, Florida Conference Room, and the rest of the board members are participating via communication media technology. So if you could please just look at your screens if you're here, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, staff, if we could have a roll call, please.
Absolutely, thank you. Director Hudson?
Here.
Director Johnson?
Here.
Committee Chair Kemp?
Here.
Director Overman?
Here.
Director Schisler?
Here.
Thank you. You do have a quorum.
Thank you. And the rules for participation and roles and responsibilities of the committee are provided in the packet. Public comment, do we have anyone for public comment?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And that is typically 3 minutes per speaker, and we do it at the opening of meetings. So we have no one for public comment. And our first business is election of the chair and vice chair for the calendar year of 2021. That's what I have here. And I thought maybe we were going to look at our committees first, but well, I guess we could do that for.
Well, yes, at your next regular meeting, I'm going to bring back a report on your generalized committee format, but because we're in the first meeting, timing-wise, we still need to go through this process.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And so you're going, General Counsel, Julia Mendel will lead us through this process.
Yes, thank you. If I could take nominations for Chair of the Strategic Planning and External Relations Committee at this time. Are there any nominations?
I would like to continue.
I nominate Commissioner Kemp.
Are there any additional nominations? With that, we'll close the nominations and we'll go ahead and take a roll call vote on Commissioner Kemp remaining as the chair.
Committee Member Hudson?
Yes.
Committee Member Johnson?
Yes.
Committee Chair Kemp?
Yes.
Committee Member Overman?
Yes.
Committee Member Schisler?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have approval of the minutes. In
Oh, no,
section.
I still need to do vice chair, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me.
That's okay. That's okay. If I could go ahead and take nominations for the vice chair. Any nominations?
I'll nominate Mr. Hudson. I don't know if you're available, are you?
I sometimes have conflicts with this meeting, so I don't want to be a bad vice chair, so
Okay.
respectfully decline.
I'd be
Direct-
interested if
Okay.
it'd be the will of the board or committee.
Director, you're running,
I nominate.
sorry.
Sorry.
You can go ahead and
I nominate Director Johnson.
very good. There's a nomination for Director Johnson. Are there any additional nominations? With no additional nominations, we'll close the nominations, and I'll ask for a roll call vote on Director Johnson as vice chair.
Committee Member Hudson?
Yes.
Committee Member Johnson?
Yes.
Committee Chair Kemp?
Yes.
Committee Member Overman?
Yes.
Committee Member Schisler?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we're set, right? In section 4 of the packet, you'll see the minutes from Joint Strategic Planning and External Relations Operation and Safety and Finance and Audit Committee hybrid meeting, November 15th, 2021. I don't think we should be, we'll still have the Finance and Audit Committee meeting later, right? So that shouldn't be in here. So is there a motion to approve the minutes for this?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. We have Councilman Schisler moving to approve, a second by Director Johnson. And seeing no further comment, do we have to take a roll call on this?
I think we typically, especially with us being hybrid, it would be appropriate for us to
Okay.
take roll call on all
That's
of our
true, we're
votes.
hybrid, I forget, thank you. A roll call, please.
Committee Member Hudson,
Yes.
Committee Member Johnson,
Yes.
Committee Chair Kemp,
Yes.
Committee Member Overman,
yes,
Committee Member Schisler.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will move to our presentations. We have coming up first the HART Network Evaluation and Short-Term Service Plan. Tim Crobon, Senior Principal, and Nelson Nygaard from Kinetics Transportation Group will present the HART Network Evaluation and Short-Term Service Plan. The slides are also displayed on the screen.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
So just good morning, everyone. Just want to give a little brief opening as we're getting everything set up for Mr. Crobon's for his presentation. So for those of you who've been with the HART Board for a while may remember that in the past there was a comprehensive operational analysis, a COA study, that was approved and was kicked off, and CTG, the firm that Mr. Crobon works for, now Nelson Nygaard, was doing that work. And then COVID came, and things changed, and we had to do an onboard survey, so we delayed a little bit so that we could get more people riding, so we could actually get data that was more reflective of the actual demand that we, envision having in the future. We also learned that more people are working from home. So all of the different, I would say, impacts to transit that came through COVID had to be taken into consideration in the work that the firm was doing. So we're fortunate today that they have a presentation on how they can continue to move forward with our work effort, the areas that we need to tweak because of the global changes in the way people move, and then what we hope to get out of this engagement. So I look forward to hearing from Tim, and they've been working with our team internally for the last couple of weeks, so we really feel good about the progress that we're making and hope you feel the same. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Tim.
Thanks, Mr. Goodman. Thank you very much for having me here. As Mr. Grant had introduced me, Tim Crobons, formerly with Kinetics Transportation Group. We were acquired just a couple of months ago by Nelson Nygaard. What I want to do today is just kind of go through our scope of our work, give you a little insight of where we're going. This study is actually a study that started in February of 2020 in the first phase. And as Ms. LeGrand had mentioned, sort of got put on pause because of COVID. And in the initial steps of the study, we looked at two major steps. One was a market needs assessment, and the second was a service performance assessment. And a lot of that work that we put together at that time is still appropriate. However, there are a few things that we'll be updating with new data, kind of current data, as the system has changed. So the first couple efforts, the market needs assessment, we really looked at the network coverage. Is HART really covering the right areas of population and employment density? Are they adequately serving mobility disadvantaged communities? And then we really looked at a latent demand analysis, which is areas that are either unserved or underserved that have potential demand in the system. Then we created a whole service performance assessment, created a number of dashboards using information from HART with regards to ridership, running time assessments, and then performance. So what I'd like to go through today is really our phase 2, which is what we're starting right now. It has 5 elements: the data collection and dashboard updates, which many of those dashboards will remain the same, but we'll update them with the new data we have. Our data analysis of the system, what's working and what's not working throughout the system, and then coming up with system network recommendations, and I'll get a little deeper into that in the presentation. We have a section of our scope to look at ridership estimation using the STOPS model to obviously determine whether or not what we put together is an effective network. Scheduling support services, which I'll talk a little bit about here shortly. This study is about a 9 to 10 months Might be able to do a little quicker, but kind of put that as a schedule for now. Kind of hyperventilating in this mask. Used to presenting with a mask. So one of the things in the first phase that we were supposed to do was an onboard survey. And for obvious reasons with COVID, that was delayed. Last fall, in September and October, that onboard survey was conducted, and it is available. So we're able to understand where folks are coming from, where they're going to in the system, how they're transferring in the system, their characteristics of those riders, and essentially travel times that are taken. Really important information to understand how the current users are using the system. Some of the other data collection we're going to be doing here right up front is getting updated ridership information from the automatic passenger accounting system. This will allow us to look at ridership at a system level, a route level, a segment level, and way down to the stop level to understand how parts of the system are performing. We'll also be collecting AVL data, automatic vehicle location data. This will help us later on be able to write better schedules that have better reliability in the system. We'll also be looking at existing staff levels. Part of the effort here is to right-size the system, not to overburden your operators with excess overtime, but to right-size the system so that you have the workforce to be able to provide that service. So a number of the dashboards that we'll be updating, the running time assessment, include the on-time performance, the load assessment, making sure that we have the right amount of resources in the right areas to provide service to folks. A ridership assessment, again, right down to the bus stop level, to be able to look at what segments of routes are effective and which ones are not. And then a staffing assessment. And the staffing assessment is something that, frankly, you're not alone in staffing for provision of services. All the transit agencies I work for around the country are all having this problem. And being able to put enough service on the street, miss trips, and so forth. So this is something that we'll be assessing to right-size the system. So there's really two steps in the process. The first step is really kind of a high level. Do we have the right span of service on the routes? Do we have the right frequencies where we need to be? Are we providing enough capacity for ridership demand? What does the on-time performance look like? What are the routes that are having reliability issues? And what can we do to rewrite those schedules to make them better? And then the objective really is to get better overall productivity. The second step is to really dive in a little deeper and start to dissect the system, look at realignments of routes. So I mentioned the onboard survey earlier. If we understand where folks are coming from and where they're going to, we can dissect their trip and understand, are they having to take 1, 2, maybe even 3 transfers to get there? What are travel times throughout the system? And if there's anything we can do structurally within the system to help people move around quicker and get to their destinations quicker, we're going to try to identify that. And then service levels. What we don't want to do is put out service where it's not needed and have empty vehicles running around. So we're going to right-size those service levels to the demands by time periods, by day of week, and by route. Route and segment deletion. One of the things that we'll be looking at is really, are there any routes that are unproductive that would need to be deleted? Or at least maybe segments of those routes that are unproductive. And as we look at reconfiguring the system, we might be trying to put together more productive segments of routes to serve those travel patterns a little bit better. And then one of the last things that we want to have a discussion with you guys is policy on service areas by route type, by time period, and by day of week. And so we'll get into that a little bit later in this day. The overall goal, service efficiency within your available resources, as in essence right-sizing the system. There's 2 last things I'd like to close with. 2 of the remaining tasks that are in the schedule. I mentioned the stops model earlier. We'll be updating that stops model. The travel demand modelers on our staff to do this all over the country. We'll be estimating the ridership on this right-sized system, and then really focusing on where can we create ridership growth in the system by reallocating resources within the system. The last task is scheduling support services. And one of the things that we've been finding in the data is that there is some ambiguity as to where time points really are in the system. And if you're trying to track and look at on-time performance in the system, you want to make sure that the driver and the IT systems are coordinating and understanding. An example would be the IT system is expecting the time point to be on the far side of the intersection, and the driver expects it to be on the near side of the intersection. The driver is trying to match the schedule up to the near side. The actual time points being recorded on the far side. It could be 2-3 minutes difference, depending on size of the intersection, the signal light cycles, and traffic congestion. We want to match this up so we're really collecting data in the right way. And the last couple of things is really the completion of the scheduling process, helping with some of the scheduling department with the lack of staff, or need for assistance in that area, looking at schedule building, run cutting, rostering, and then even helping with the administration. That's kind of a summary of the effort we will be undertaking. Any questions?
Are there any questions?
I have several, actually.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. I have a series of questions when it comes to updating the information, because much has changed over the last couple of years. As you mentioned earlier, COVID obviously sort of hijacked our process for really measuring ridership to some degree, because so many people are still working at home or choosing to work at home. But we've also expanded our Flamingo fare service to some degree. We've had the streetcar actually have no fare, and that has increased that ridership significantly, which is an issue that needs to be incorporated within the study, I assume. And then there's the importance of recognizing transit dependent communities. We have currently, if the TPO's maps are reflective of where folks are that are transit dependent, it seems in my mind that we have areas that currently have the need for bus service but don't have the service reliably enough or within enough time period to have people change their patterning. So for example, we went from 15-minute headways to 20 and 30 in many cases, and that every time we do that or every time we change a route, it impacts the utilization of that route. Are you able to cipher out those impacts in this work?
Absolutely. One of the things we'll be collecting is ridership data over a large time period and understanding every time you make or have made changes, what have been the impacts on that ridership, both in the total ridership and in key stops along the location. So like say it's an employment center. How are you impacting trips that are going to an employment center as an example? You mentioned high equity areas, looking at areas that are low income, zero car auto ownership, high minority, even elderly, some of those areas that have limited mobility options. We specifically zero down into those areas and understand not only where those communities are, but looking at things like the onboard survey to understand where those folks are going to and where they're coming from to come from those high equity areas. We've done a lot of work with that in Denver recently as part of a redesign effort that does exactly that effort. The other thing we have that I didn't mention is we have location-based services data, which is the cell phone data. And we'll be looking at how people are moving around the community there. It doesn't always tell you the characteristics of those individuals. It doesn't even tell you who they are. It just shows the movements. But we're able to look at those and look at the high equity communities and can surmise from that, in addition to the onboard survey, how folks are moving around the community from those high equity areas as well.
Thank you, because we have had certain communities that have been developed since then, where there's a likely population of bus riders, but it's not, it's within a half a mile, without a shelter at the particular location. So, sheltering does matter. People will use buses if we have appropriate bus stops and shelters. And in Florida, that matters a lot. So I was just curious, if we compensated for that. And we have another area that has a flex service down in the Waimama area, which I'm really curious to see how that is utilized, how we've adopted the community's need for transit, and when we have a comp plan for the county that encourages density right in the Waimama area, it would seem as though that area could, at some point in time, have a greater opportunity for transit service, since there are so many low-income and transit-dependent residents in that area. The reason that I'm paying attention to a lot of this is because we are desperately trying to figure out how to create affordable housing, and where we're offering incentives where transit lies, it will matter, because many times the new communities that are built for mid and low income communities to help with housing for those individuals, we're reducing the parking, so the transit's necessary. So that's why I'm asking these questions, because where those communities, where those affordable housing communities are and where they're being built, transit matters a great deal. And being able to incorporate that in our near term, but more importantly, long term, matters, as well as how the buses are traveling on the roads that may or may not include, protected lanes so they can get through. And those are the things that I'm thinking about when it comes to how our system expands over time, especially given we've got 1,000 people, a day moving here. So I'll stop there, but those are the things that I'm trying to understand can be effectively evaluated and cost-righted, so that we can determine what our long-term financial needs are to meet the needs of the citizens in Hillsborough County. I'll stop there.
Yeah, I'll just make one quick comment on affordable housing. That is an extremely important item, and one thing that we don't have that we will get is the planned affordable housing locations in the county. It's essential that we cover those areas with the fixed route services.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, just a comment on that. I think you need to look at all housing that's proposed for development of all modality, single family, attached, market. I think there's a notion out there that capital A affordable housing has a certain look to it and whatnot, but I would strongly urge you to look at any type of shelter that people might use to live in when you determine where growth is going to go. And if you need help getting that data and those resources, please let us know, either as members of this committee or the staff of HART.
Absolutely, thank you.
Any other questions? Did you? A couple questions. Will the end result be for us? I really love seeing heat maps and kind of understanding, they're a great visualization for understanding where we're going. And I'm just wondering if that will be, something that you'll bring us.
You can't see I'm smiling through my mask, but yeah, we do a lot of heat maps, a lot of GIS work, and a lot of dashboard work where all the data sets are pulled together to illustrate things, including you can zero in on specific areas and understand where those trips are going in communities. So yes, definitely heat maps, they're coming, yes.
And then I'm not quite sure, it'll be more, I guess, when we get the presentation than now, but just a couple of things. The fact, of course, that the streetcar has been for free has been an anomaly, and it was supposed to last 3 years, now it's going on for longer. But, I guess you can say that, but any route that we offered for free, I imagine, would increase ridership on that route. So I'm just, how's that factored in?
Factored in as if it were free instead of fare.
I guess you just say that, and, it's just, it would be it has brought much greater ridership.
We can certainly look at what the increases have been for the streetcar, but there are other systems as well around the United States that have gone free, whether it be for a period of time or just gone free altogether. And we do have a lot of information on what has been the increase in ridership, so we can give an assessment of that. We can also look through the stops modeling whether or not, if you just put a free fare in there, what does that do for ridership as well, estimation.
I'm wondering, too, with regards to that compared to other routes, and just looking at those issues.
Yeah, it certainly in areas, it kind of depends on what kind of ridership you're going to get for a free fare based on how far people can travel on the system in a given day. Because there's free fare, you think, well, they're going to use that a lot more services, but if they're only making certain trips and it's taking them a large portion of their day, the free fare doesn't change anything other than it's free for them. It may not allow them to make more trips because their time is committed to the trips they're making. But it does generate some ridership of folks that normally wouldn't jump on, folks that are making trips that are not necessarily planned, but just, off the cuff, jumping on the vehicle and riding. So it does increase ridership.
Great. I don't have any other questions, and it looks like no one else does. So I think we can, do we need to approve this or move it on to the,
So, Madam Chair, may I?
yes.
So again, thank you, Mr. Crobans, for coming today and doing the presentation. I do want to share and reemphasize that this is not a planning study alone. At the end, we will be implementing the changes. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. This is not an aspirational, theoretical assignment where we have some plans and then, we can feel good about the plans. The intention here is that by, hopefully, we're looking at the fall when we update our service, our markup, and hopefully by that time, COVID is not something that's stopping us from living our lives freely. We'll be able to implement a service that would be reflective of the community moving around again. So just wanted to make sure that we're aware that the ultimate goal is to have a service that's on the street, that's more efficient, that complements the resources that we currently have, and allows us to create a better experience for our customers.
Great for that clarification, and thank you for the presentation. I did think it was very informative and helped elucidate kind of what we're actually looking at there. Director Johnson?
Oh, quick question for Ms. LeGrand. As far as the timeline on this, so you said fall would be when we would be looking to be able to implement, correct?
That is correct. Currently, we have 3 markups, we call them, within the union contract. So we're looking to make these changes at our 3rd markup, which would be around the fall.
Okay, perfect. So since we are going to be looking to implement it in the fall, the only thing I would be, if there are going to be, the possibility of some changes, just as long as we have our marketing and communications folks already working on things to make sure that once that happens, we're going to be able to jump on that quickly. So that way we can make sure the ridership is going to know when and how that's going to affect them, and they'll have the ability to be able to change their schedules if needed based off of our new schedules.
That is a great point, and we did not present the public engagement portion. So that is not a part of Mr. Crobon's specific scope. In the overall contract, the COA, we do have a vendor, a consultant who is responsible for doing our public engagement. So there will be a process, and it is required that we go out to the community and share with them the changes and gain their feedback as well before we go live. So that will be a part of the process, and we'll make sure that when we come back again, we'll give you an overview of the entire public engagement process.
Perfect, thanks.
And also, I'd just like to add, during Mission Max, there was a lot of public engagement. We might have even had multiple, we had multiple community meetings, and those weren't, I don't think, particularly well scheduled and not well attended, but a lot of people came here, and it was very robust. And, you know, there was a lot of community feedback about that change.
Yeah, and exactly, and I assume that there will be, I don't, once with something, affecting lives as much as this possibly can. So I'm sure that Ms. LeGrand's already working on that, and just wanted to make sure that we had that out there, and looking forward to hearing what we'll be doing a little bit later on down the road when it's appropriate.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda is a committee action item for review by the committee to form a recommendation for approval by the full board of directors. Item 5A is for the committee to form a recommendation to the HART Board of Directors to authorize the chief executive officer to modify the existing contract with Kinetics Transportation Group to add $102,863 for additional tasks related to HART's network evaluation and comprehensive operational analysis, a COA, and increase the total not to exceed amount from $405,155 to $508,019. And in your packets, there's a write-up of the proposed resolution in support of the item. And I'm just wondering, Ms. LeGrand, would you be addressing that for questions or?
Yes, if there are any questions, I can definitely address it. Overall, I would say the presentation that we just went through are the scope items that would be included in that $102,863,000. And again, the reason why we have to extend it's because the original contract did not take into consideration the additional analysis that would be required coming out of COVID, and then they also had to, I guess, expand the onboard survey period of time to better collect data that's more reflective of where we are today. So I hope, and the scope has changed a little bit, I will also say, because we want more than just a comprehensive operational analysis. Traditionally, in a COA, you would get the analysis and you would understand where demand is and what you should look at. What we're doing here is completing the COA, but also implementing the new design so that we can move forward with a more efficient service that is reflective of our current resources, as well as giving us the opportunity to see where we need to bring in more resources. So that's pretty much any questions that you may have. Both myself and Mr. Crobans are here to respond.
Councilman Schisler?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ms. LeGrand. That was, you answered my question before I had a chance to answer it. I was curious as to what the expansion of the scope was. A little more specificity. And when do we anticipate completion?
So currently in the COA scope, there is budget. So the team is moving forward with some of the work that was in phase one that Mr. Croban showed on the slide. So they're completing the phase one work, which included doing the analysis of the onboard survey and looking at some of the output from that effort. We're looking in his schedule, he said 10 months. What I would like, so now I'm using my pressure here, so sorry, Tim, but what we would like is to receive the final product that we can actually put into the fall markup by the fall. So I would say, September, October, so that when we do the fall markup, these changes are reflective. The consulting team will come back to the board in a couple of months once they have the results from their modeling as well as the data gathering so that we can start to see where some changes may exist. We're not really expecting, and I don't want to speak for you, Tim, anything like earth-shattering, but just, I would say, tightening up some of what we currently have. I'll give you an example. You know, we have a route that goes from the Marion Transit Center to the mall, and it takes an hour and 10 minutes to go from the Marion Transit Center to the mall. We all know that if we got out of this meeting right now and got in a car and drove from the Marion Transit Center to the mall, we can get there in 15 minutes, right? So some of those are the issues that I brought to Tim's team, like how can we make this a better trip for our passengers? So if they have a job at the mall, it doesn't take them 3 times as long riding our system as it would if they got in a car with a friend. So, you know, when he says we may make some deletions, it's looking at a route that may be serving 3 different markets. So maybe this one route should be broken down into 3 or 2 routes. So yes, it may change, but overall, the experience should be better. It's not that we'll be eliminating coverage, so that's not the intention, so I did want to share that. But overall, we're looking to have this implemented by the fall, but come back to the board within the next couple of months so you can see where the data is leading us.
Well, good. That's good because, you know, you do have budget cycle coming up here well before that they'll be working on it over the summer. And if there's any changes that can be realized as a result of that, it'd be good to have them in this next budget cycle if we could. Thank you.
That's great.
I'm prepared to make a motion when it's proper.
You can make a motion and we'll call in Director Johnson. So you
Okay,
move to.
I move to have the committee approve the increase to and modify the existing contract with Kinetics Transportation and move it to the full board for final approval.
Second.
Okay. And was that you, Director Johnson? Okay. And Director Johnson? Did you have any questions? Oh, okay, okay. And Commissioner Overman, do you have questions?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much, and I appreciate this. And I was looking at what will be for the Finance and Audit Committee description of this, and it shows that there were 3 phases, which we've heard, one of which was canceled due to the surtax failure. And I'm a little concerned because, you know, it does appear as though we will have an opportunity to revisit that issue soon. So I know it was mentioned earlier, but I want to make sure that it wasn't, you know, we do still need that information given that we do anticipate some revenue sources as well as potential FTA grants in the future. That if we were to have a surtax, we would qualify for matching. So was that completely out of out of this study with this particular change?
Ms. LeGrand?
So good morning, Commissioner Overman. Are you speaking, just for my clarity here, are you speaking specifically about the task to look at additional funding sources?
Well, it says the project was divided into 3 phases, one of which was subsequently canceled due to the failure of the surtax. So I'm curious, the net reduction has been applied, so I'm just trying to make sure that we are not, you know, doing a study that would not include the potential need for that and how it might be utilized and what impact it would have on our network.
So, and Tim, if you would like to talk as well, but the scope that Nelson Nygaard is working on now will take into consideration our current state, but then also look at future demand. So I'm not really 100% sure of the specifics that you're looking to see, but we can definitely take a look at that. Now, related to additional funding sources and grant opportunities, that is something that we are moving forward under a different contract. So that work effort is still moving forward, but it's not under the COA work effort. Tim, is there anything you want to talk about as far as what the optional tasks were associated with the referendum and how you guys are going to ensure that we're covering future state in your analysis?
So the scope that we're being authorized to move forward with is really focused on right-sizing the system within your existing resources. However, the analysis we do is going to identify where the needs are. And beyond what your current resources can afford. So from that perspective, our effort will identify needs beyond what's implementable here in the fall of this year to support, additional funding sources should they come about.
Thank you. And the reason I'm asking that question is because we actually need that answer in February to be able to help our citizens understand the importance of funding for transit and making sure that, the surtax passes with those that are interested in investing in transit. So thank you for doing the work. I appreciate it.
Okay, and if there are no further questions, we have a motion by Councilman Schizler, seconded by Director Johnson, and seeing no further comments, if we could do a roll call vote?
Committee Member Hudson,
Yes.
Committee Member Johnson,
Yes.
Committee Chair Kemp,
Yes.
Committee Member Overman,
Yes.
and Committee Member Schisler.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, committee members. In your packet is Section 7. That's a quarterly update on the Transit Development Plan, the TDB, as an information item. And we'll move to old business. Any old business? Any new business? Okay, hearing none, the meeting is adjourned at 9:42. Thank you.